Why is it so hard to make a Suicide Squad story? In the last 10 years, we have had 2 movies and now 1 AAA video game adapting them, and only 1 movie has done it right. Audiences love stories of misfits, people who defy expectations and become heroes, or just conquer their own inner demons. We can all look to the Justice League or the Avengers and admire them, but we as people are not the idols of perfection that someone like Superman is, or how he's supposed to be.
General, haven't you ever heard of freedom of the press?
I'm not saying we're all villains or something stupid like that, but people like Harley, Deadshot, Boomerang, or Nanaue are wearing their flaws on their sleeves. When they're the antagonist of a Batman story, they serve their purpose of kicking in heads, but when they're the protagonist of a Suicide Squad story, we have a chance to see them as people. Bird. Flawed, but with good intentions, even if they go about it in a bad way. Their uniqueness allows us to fall in love with this band of misfits. So how come Rocksteady made a game that strips all of that away? How has Rocksteady, a studio that in recent memory has proven that they can create some of the best stories of the Caped Crusader in modern history, a studio that shook the very foundation of game design to the point that Arkham Combat became something that other studios ripped off and took as the new baseline for what fighting should feel like in a story-driven action game? How have they made something that feels so empty? Something that makes every single character that on paper should play so differently, that should be so fun to see how they would each attack a problem because it would be entirely different, feel exactly the same. You have a character like Deadshot, whose whole thing is being the best shot in the entire world, a character who uses guns better than anyone else in the world. So then, why would you also give a gun to the guy whose whole thing is that he throws boomerangs? It's literally the scene from The Suicide Squad where Bloodsport looks at Peacemaker and goes,
"He does exactly what I do."
Why would you give a chain gun or a shotgun to the Shark Man who can rip someone in half with his bare hands without even trying? Why would you give a gun to the woman who is good at backflips and psychology in the middle of a war-torn city? Give her a mallet. Okay, maybe we can still give Harley a gun. I mean, that does make sense. But the point still stands. The Suicide Squad thrives on the creativity that a writer can bring to the table by allowing these different characters to be themselves, to bring their unique, distinct, different abilities to create a well-balanced team. And in the cutscenes here, they kind of do that. Boomer feels like Boomer, so do the rest of these guys.
Well, we only went and did it, you bloody beauties! We killed Superman!
There was so much promise, such a great idea. It's a Suicide Squad game. It should be a lot of fun. And yet, it isn't. It kinda sucks. It's kind of one of the worst games of its kind I've played in a very long time. So why, at the end of the day, does Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League fail? Why does this game feel so empty? But you don't have to feel empty. You can feel as powerful as Brainiac does by using this video's sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant is a fun and easy way to learn math, science, and computer science in a fun and interactive way. Unlike Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, these lessons are actually fun and diverse. There are thousands of lessons that take you all the way from basic ideas to advanced concepts, with new lessons being added every month. No matter what skill level you come in with, Brilliant customizes its content to fit your needs so you can progress at your own pace. There's no grinding on rooftops and doing the same repetitive stupid missions to get to the next scrap of fun. Each step allows for you to feel like you're progressing in your journey. Find topics that actually interest you, like the Hot Technologies work course, where you can learn stuff you've probably actually wondered about in your day-to-day life, like what actually makes a password good, or how algorithms like the one on YouTube know what content you'll like. And that's just the tip of the iceberg lounge. See what I did there? Gotcha? The Batman? Had to do it. It's fine. There are many more courses waiting for you, and you guys know how much I love Brilliant, how much. They've been a great sponsor to this channel. So seriously, go check them out. I can't recommend it enough. It's actually a tool that I find useful in my own life. And it's also just great to exercise your brain. They're such a great service. I can't recommend it enough. So what are you waiting for? If you use the code brilliant.org/filmspeak, you could get started for free for 30 days. And the first 200 of you that visit the link will get 20% off your annual plan. Again, go to brilliant.org/filmspeak for a free 30-day trial. And if you're one of the lucky 200, 20% off your annual plan. And thank you so much to Brilliant, as always, for sponsoring this video. Taking a step back, we have a great setup here. Brainiac is controlling the Justice League in a similar way to how Waller is controlling the Squad. It's kind of a cool parallel. The game even sets up an interesting dynamic between Deadshot and Green Lantern because Lantern took Deadshot's life away, at least in Deadshot's mind. He destroyed his chance at having a normal life with his daughter. We have so much going on that sets up an interesting dynamic for everyone at play. Boomer still hates Flash and he's dealing with a bunch of issues with that, and Shark has this interesting conflict of duty and trust in Waller from past missions and wanting to prove his worth to his father.
Sharko, are you crying?
I have a complicated relationship with my father.
You get a sense of history with this character and his relationship to the Squad, and that would have been really cool to unpack here. But alas, they just kind of tease it at random times. You even have the idea that Brainiac, similar to Waller, is rounding people up for conscription. Those that refuse are killed. The irony in Waller not realizing she's doing the same to the Squad, or worse, she does, but doesn't care or thinks it's more acceptable because the Squad are criminals. They're worthless. There's no chance at redemption for them, so they might as well be forced into a situation where they have to do good or die. It's the typical Suicide Squad story. Waller in this universe doesn't give a fuck about anyone with powers. She hates the Justice League, or at least she seems to hate the Justice League because of their power, because of the responsibility they have given themselves. She doesn't trust it. The existence of the League robs her of her power in the world, which in turn makes her create something worse for everyone with the Suicide Squad. To her, they're disposable. They aren't people anymore. They've made their choices in life and are stuck with whatever mistakes they have. It's literally the boat scene from The Dark Knight.
We don't all have to die. Those men had their chance.
And it's not just Waller who's doing this. Whenever the Squad comes into contact with the Flash before he gets turned, he kind of dismisses them, asking what the hell they're doing there and that, oh, you're not capable of this. Same with Wonder Woman. She kind of underestimates the Squad because they're the bad guys. That's a really interesting thing to explore here. Are these people capable of being heroic, or are they too far gone? Have their choices gone so far as to define who they are? At the start, it seems to be about characters rising above their past mistakes to be better people, to evolve, especially when they're thrust into a situation where they have to save the world from annihilation. That's interesting. And yet, they don't really do anything with it. It's just, damn it. For the most part, though, that's just what you get when you're telling a Suicide Squad story. There's the layered relationships between the villains and their respective heroes here. But for the actual execution of the story, it never hits us with the emotional resonance that it could. We're just subjected to, for whatever reason, another evil Superman story. Because we play as the typical villains of this story, it is showing that these heroes are just as capable of being villains as villains are of being the heroes. Every one of our main characters has been a victim of cruel circumstances, there's no denying. They understand what it's like to not be in control of your life and fighting for that control back. Even if it led them down the wrong path, they still fought for their lives. So when the people who we have always viewed as the heroes of the DC universe are not evil of their own volition, they are evil because of the cruel circumstances they have been subjected to, why are we trying to kill them? Why can't we save them, or at least make an attempt to? Early in the game, Wonder Woman uses her lasso of truth on the Flash, and he tells her that the only way to save them is to kill them.
You have to kill us, Diana. We have to die to save the world.
It's a really tragic and emotional moment where both Flash and Wonder Woman realize that there's nothing either of them can do in this situation. Now, granted, there are so many other stories with these characters where something akin to that exact sentence is said, and do you know what they do? They try and find another way. They figure out how to be the heroes we know them to be. They don't kill because it was the first option presented. Through the gameplay, through this story, give us a reason to feel like there is no other option if that is truly the case. Make it feel desperate. Make us feel the weight of what we are about to do. Your audience cares for what you are doing to these people. Use that to your advantage. Put the Suicide Squad in a situation where they can't take the easy way out. They can't just execute these people or lock them up or something. They actually have to work together in order to make a difference. As you're going through all of this, it just comes across like middle school edgelord storytelling, and the fact that the Squad has no respect whatsoever for the League, no conflict in blatantly murdering these people makes the whole experience feel even more confused and gross. Especially because early on in the game, they're having conversations about not wanting to kill these guys, about trying to figure out other ways. That's cool for a cutscene, and I'm glad that they did that, but where is that in the actual gameplay? Where is that in the actual pathway of the narrative? Like, it just doesn't actually amount to anything. Like, these are people that they've kind of crossed swords with, for lack of a better word, for the better part of their tenure as villains. There's gotta be some attachment there. It's kind of like the Joker-Batman dynamic, where they don't necessarily want to kill each other. They kind of both propel each other. It's this cycle where they keep going, and the fact that some of these guys are arch enemies, specifically Boomerang and Flash, like, wouldn't it be a bit weird for him to finally not have Flash around anymore? I guess that's just where I go, you're really not paying attention to the history of these characters and the past encounters they've had. Like, yeah, I'm sure Boomerang hates Flash for locking him up, but he has to realize that he's also part of the problem here, right? And I'm sure he doesn't necessarily want to see him die. At the beginning of the story, this idea was clearly thought of. The game begins with the Flash not under the mind control of Brainiac. During an early level where you're hunted by Batman, which is a great subversion of the classic stealth segments of the Arkham series, by the way, the only reason you survive is because of the Flash. He sacrifices himself. He is the hero we all read month to month. He is the character we all love. So then why is the only option after that to kill him? Why can't we try to save him in the same way he saved us? Even if there was no other option, there's no attempt. We don't even need to succeed, but we can't try? We can't make our heroes try to actually help? This weird feeling is also compounded by the fact that Barry turns into a complete and utter dick when taken over by Brainiac.
Would you look at that? He did have a heart. Catch!
Oh, yuck!
Yeah, I guess you don't even mind killing him. I just can't fathom trying to make the Justice League so unlikable when they're already so unpopular as is because of everything that's kind of gone down with the DCEU. It's just a baffling decision. Don't you want to rehabilitate the images of these characters? Making them arrogant assholes controlled by Brainiac doesn't really solve that problem. And that's especially true for Batman. Batman is a massive asshole in this, and it's really disheartening. I understand why, but it's super unpleasant.
Harley, even you can't be stupid enough to think that you have a chance against Superman.
I don't want to feel that way about Batman. That's so weird. And the problem is, it's never made clear why these characters are such assholes. Is it Brainiac talking? Because if that's true, he sure has a first-hand way of communicating like Barry Allen or Bruce Wayne or John Stewart with the knowledge and relationships and just... it doesn't sound like it's coming from Brainiac. Is this supposed to be Barry's repressed anger and emotions? Because if so, that's about as strong as character assassination gets. This is really true of all the League outside of Wonder Woman, who is horribly murdered, by the way, by Superman. The world these characters live in all think that the members of the Suicide Squad need to be forced into action, that they don't care about anything. They're just guns for hire. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Deadshot's whole life is caring for others, caring for his daughter. It's what motivates him, caring about what Green Lantern took from him. Which is also really interesting considering the fact that Green Lantern is a space cop and Deadshot is a criminal who's had to do bad things out of necessity. There's a sympathy there. There's an interesting conversation to have, an interesting dynamic to explore that never really is. All Boomerang wants is to be wanted by people. He is a man of crippling insecurity, just looking for the light that can guide him home. Harley's life was taken from her by a man who laughed at the pain he caused her. King Shark was taken from his home and forced into a world of death, a world that is afraid of him, treats him differently because of what he is. These are people who care, people who, if given the chance, can make a difference. But they're treated like losers, people whose opinions don't matter. And that's where the film is so at odds with itself. You have these great attempts in the cutscenes, but then it's just completely undermined by the actions you do in the game. The game so deeply wants that punk rock irreverence that comes with telling a story about the Suicide Squad, a story about the bad guys. But these people aren't necessarily psychopaths or morally reprehensible. Not this iteration of the Suicide Squad. People who are setting out to do the right thing but just have a different moral code for how they're going to handle things. But then it makes things feel really off when Boomerang starts trying to piss on the Flash once they've killed him. In isolation, that's funny. It's in character, but it's in character for the Boomerang we see in the comics or the cartoons, not this version based on what we've been shown. Everything feels like it's at odds with each other in this game. Like, the Flash just saved your life a couple of hours ago. Why then would you respond so asymmetrically when forced to kill him? It's just lame, man. It's so lame, and it makes no sense. It's like they wanted to have a really crass and edgy joke to use as a punchline for the death of the Flash, but it's like the Flash is just kind of like, he just collapses. There's nothing there. He just dies. And then the squad is left to kind of, I don't know, just stand there and make quips about it. It's just, the game is constantly struggling to find the balance needed to be the bad guys who are going to save the day. I want to see these characters struggle in the context of the story to grapple with the morality of what it is that they're doing, but the tonal whiplash of the story itself hurts everything. It undermines everything. Every step forward is 2 steps back. We are stuck in a story without any weight. Outside of the premise itself, the actual killing of each member of the Justice League just sort of happens and never fully feels like there is a resolution to each. I never felt anything. I only feel emotionally attached because I love these characters. When Batman is killed in this story, he is shot point blank by Harley Quinn, which just feels empty. So now, when faced with the death of Batman, the person who, in a way, has perpetuated her pain to some extent, how come we feel nothing? Why does this feel so wrong? Wouldn't she maybe realize that despite the pain Batman has caused her, the frustration, he kind of saved her, in a way, by ridding her of the Joker's possession? But regardless, this is the end of his story, not even as himself, but as a possessed, evil version of himself, and as the player, you feel nothing. You feel nothing but disappointment, but just resentment towards the developers for making you feel that way. He's just murdered to use as bait for Superman, who's then killed even less ceremoniously. And this doesn't even just apply to the main characters of the story. Early in the game, you save a brainwashed Poison Ivy from Lex Luthor because apparently you save brainwashed people as long as it wasn't Brainiac who did the brainwashing. You get the chance to save someone who doesn't remember their life and has been forced into a world she hates. She's a child. Like, there's a lot of weird and interesting things going on here. But once you save her, all that kind of goes out the window. She's just relegated to a craftsperson that you don't really have to ever interact with again because upgrades do nothing in this game. Same goes for Penguin too, by the way, because he's back in this. What a horribly uninteresting way to handle these characters. Even the world these characters exist in doesn't feel that deep. Why is this Metropolis? This could be any other city. What in this world defines it as the city of tomorrow outside of a few billboards for the Daily Planet? Half the time you're just jumping off of rooftops. You never really get a ground level look at what Metropolis looks like you did in the Arkham games. And when you do get down to that ground level, I mean, yeah, it does look kind of cool, if not a bit generic, but there's no reason to stay down there. There's no missions down there. There's no crevices or buildings to go into. It's just such a hollow world. The gameplay is admittedly fun at first when you're going around getting accustomed to things and are generally following a linear story within the game model that exists here, but it shortly fades because by the time I got to that Flash boss battle, I was so exhausted with the repetitiveness of everything. Playing this game is nothing but a grind with very little reward. If I switch between Harley Quinn and King Shark, I want that experience to feel entirely unique. Not just a light and heavy version of shooting at meaningless gray and purple sludge. Why am I just mindlessly shooting at Green Lantern and Superman? Shouldn't the strategy be to come up with a strategy to kill the Justice League? Given the fact that you're outgunned and outmatched, shouldn't these boss battles be built around the unique abilities of the squad members and having to get creative with their tactics? Half of these boss battles are just reskinned versions of previous boss battles, which center around evading blast attacks, countering and holding down R2 for dear life. There's not even quick time events to spice up the proceedings. It's just pumping these gods full of bullets until they eventually die, which is so goddamn boring. It's worsened by the fact that everything even remotely interesting happens in a cutscene. An entire battle between Wonder Woman and Superman, which is like, I want to be involved in that. I want to be Wonder Woman in that little moment. It's going on while you're forced to do a stupid escort mission. Like, what? And speaking of that battle where Wonder Woman gets brutally murdered, I guess the developers forgot how kryptonite works. Oh right, he's possessed by Brainiac, so all bets are off. It makes total sense. Yeah, sure, whatever. He can get stabbed through the chest with kryptonite and come back and still manage to kill Diana. It's totally fine. Yeah, no worries at all. Look, even in Spider-Man 2 or the Arkham games, when I reached a level that pissed me off to no end, I still felt compelled and motivated to beat it because I had to know what happened next. That's not the case here. In fact, I came really close to just not finishing this game because of how frustrated and bored I was with the whole thing, the grind. It just, nothing that happens has any effect on the members of the Suicide Squad from a character standpoint. Like, zero. Because I'm not invested. I never feel like I need or want to finish what I'm doing in the game. It feels like nothing is stopping me from just putting the controller down, switching off the system, and moving on with my day, and maybe revisiting it when I'm less aggravated. Everything about Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League feels like it's at odds with itself. The story wants to exist in a single-player story, but oh wait, you have to be connected to the internet to play it, where the writers were allowed to add so much more to the content found in the game. The character building feels like a strange RPG, and all of this is at odds with, again, the live service, Fortnite, Borderlands wannabe outdated game that this is wrapped in. In an ideal world, maybe these were separate games, or at least a bit more time was given to this story so that we could feel the impact of killing our heroes. Personally, I don't even think it's inherently a bad idea for the story. It's not what I would personally do with the Suicide Squad, but I see an avenue for this to be interesting. It just takes tact to pull it off, and when the developers behind that game-changing Arkham trilogy walked, so did Suicide Squad's ability to pull off the concept. This is the Suicide Squad, for Christ's sake. Just make it a linear third-person RPG about Task Force X invading a foreign country for Waller, only to wake up to what it is they're doing and take matters into their own hands. Something like that. The template is right there with James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. And it doesn't have to be an exact replica of that, but at least take some notes from that. Instead, WB Games and Rocksteady decide to take pages out of the wrong Suicide Squad, even down to the enemies and cataclysmic event. Sadly, we're stuck with this version of Suicide Squad kills the Justice League. And as it stands, I think I'd rather just let Brainiac win than see this squad save the day.